Familia.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What's going on, folks, and welcome back to another wonderful day in Eternum. This time around, it appears we've received ourselves another developer diary, and this one specifically focuses more on the combat aspect. As you may or may not know, we had done an analysis on the combat system a couple weeks ago, but it was a very basic one, and it was related to the 2 minutes of footage we received from the GameStar interview. This one, on the other hand, offers us over 4 minutes of total gameplay, along with some brief explanations from the Amazon Game Studio staff mixed in. We've got quite a bit to talk about today, so without further delay, let's go ahead and jump right into this. The developer diary starts off with a hot showcase of the combat system. Let's take it right from the top. In these first couple of scenes, we get to see some brave explorers putting the smackdown on some corrupted fiends. And right here we get to see this amazing skill show off of the Great Axe. This appears to be some type of self-buff that this person is casting judging by the aura. But I must admit that at first I thought this was the healing staff that we had heard about previously. We know so far that fire magic is in the game alongside healing magic, but we haven't seen any hints at the gauntlets yet. I've been seriously wondering if we're going to get some sort of attack magic gauntlets to play around with in addition to the older healing versions that we had. This is also actually one of the first times that we get to see the Great Axe in action. Despite all the carnage we witnessed during the GameStar footage, we hadn't seen anything major from the Great Axe aside from it being equipped on people's backs. So even though this brave warrior is probably about to die a glorious death to that corrupted bear, it's awesome to see this weapon getting some love. Definitely one that I could see myself using as one of my own weapons. Also, it looks like we are now looking at the newer types of corrupted here. We have seen these warrior types and the corrupted zombies, both in the cinematic trailer and in the dev diaries, but these creatures appear to be something else entirely. And if you notice, right as the player does the shield charge towards one of them, the other appears to throw a corrupted-based javelin at him. If I had to guess, I would say that this appears to be a corrupted dryad that originally comes from the Angry Earth faction. They look very similar in nature, but I think over time the corruption may have changed their appearance. But I'm very confident that that creature has to come from the faction just based off its look. But now this next part is the fun one. Right after a couple more seconds of fighting, we get to look at a corrupted entity, but not just any type. This one has got to be our very first look at a corrupted field boss. I mean, look at this guy's sword. You don't give a badass flaming weapon like that to just anybody. And on top of that, you have this guy zipping and diving around like nobody's business. These two players barely seem capable of standing up to it as it is. And if you hadn't noticed, that corrupted character shares an awful lot of similarities to the explorer that lost his free will during the New World trailer. Despite the character in the trailer having what looks to be a rapier instead of a one-handed sword, or it could be someone from his squad that just decided to do a weapon change after a while. One good thing to point out as well is that this character must come from the in-game areas of Eternum. The reason I say this is because if you look at the sword when the creature isn't attacking, and compare it to the one-handed sword concept art, if you go left to right, the gold or copper looking one at the end is the highest tier. The player themselves seems to be holding this sword as well, and during the previous alpha, this was known as Orichalcum. We've also seen this sword being shown off in a couple other screenshots in the New World space. Be sure to keep tabs on this guy. I don't think we've seen the last of him yet. The last scene before the diary starts shows off some of the magic and sword and shield buffing capabilities of the game, with the mage setting off a flame blast right next to what appears to be a corrupted breach, but possibly a different type that we haven't seen before. In previous diaries, we have seen the portal itself with the corrupted monolith, but this one appears to be very different, and gives more of a Alien vs Predator vibe. In the corner, we also see another corrupted mob, but this one's a little bit harder to make out than before. This could be the warrior variant for the corrupted mobs that we saw a little bit ago. But now that we have those details out of the way, now we can talk about the actual beginning of the developer diary. The title of this one is Call to Arms. One thing I already love right off the bat is we get to see different types of armor variants during the showcase. We also get some more love for the two-handed spear and some other weapons, while Dan Hinneber and Kim Wood talk more about the combat system we'll be interacting with. They describe it as being 100% real-time action combat. The way we move, the way we position ourselves or dodge and lunge, it all matters. As we can see in several parts of the footage, we get access to various different skills and combos, and we have the possibility during fights to dodge arrows and even bullets if we're fast enough. It's more like an action RPG as opposed to a traditional MMO. We also get some information from Scott Geiser, who bears the title of Software Development Engineer, and he tells us that it's going to be based way more on skill, positioning and tactics as opposed to just gear, and that's when it comes to being more successful in the new world. I also wanted to stop here a quick second because I do believe congratulations may be in order. I'm not sure if this is related to him specifically or another member of the team, but out of some of the job positionings that we talked about in previous news, it just so happens that software development engineer is one of the ones that was seemingly filled from the website. It is great to see more and more new faces on the staff team, and whether or not that was his listing, I truly hope that he and everyone else there does enjoy their time there. We even get to look at some new skills as this player uses a warhammer to completely obliterate the corrupted in a straight line. This looks amazing, and although I can't tell if this weapon is magically imbued, the red glow effect that you get when using these skills looks incredible for the visual part of it. And oh my god, the range and AoE on that skill looks like it's going to be crazy in PvP, or even when you're just fighting mobs. If people with warhammers get to have a move like that, I think it's only fair that those of us who use great axes get some sort of Demacian whirlwind. And that is totally not because I want to get an excuse to gather up a bunch of mobs and start spinning in the middle of them. Not at all. Now in this specific scene, we get to look more at the combo system of New World. It's clear to see that each individual weapon has their own fighting patterns if you just chain together normal attacks. This is important to note because the NPCs themselves, as we know, will be blocking, dodging, and using skills to counteract our attacks. It's going to be important to know when to incorporate these skills into our fighting styles, so we don't end up getting knocked out while hitting a mob endlessly. And as we know, these skills also do share a cooldown with other weapons, so knowing when to switch bars and which skills to use at which time are going to play a very important factor in the combat. It's also hard to see at first, but for the bow, it does look like we have to arc our shots and how these arrows do seem to have a travel drop-off or travel distance, whatever the right way to describe it is. But the aiming reticle seems to be good enough to allow us to accurately judge our distance as well as lead shots on our enemies. Although I would definitely advocate for different types of reticle options for both bows and muskets, especially if we can get different options and different color choices built into the settings of the game. Me personally, I'd love to go for either a triangle or a single dot type reticle with the red color on it. But first we'll have to get a feel for the aiming system before we dive too far into suggesting that kind of stuff. Plus, if they're planning to allow add-ons, although I'm not sure if they will, then players may be able to design their own or design them for players in the community to also make use of. One very important thing to note is that right here we also get to look at the player's standing level being increased. And if you didn't notice, the location in question is actually called Morningdale, which is yet another area that we have not seen before, alongside Cutlass Keys that was shown off in the previous footage. This is definitely a hat tip to their plans to expand the map size. And as we discussed before, they are going to be aiming for around 40 kilometers squared, which is slightly higher than the size of Skyrim, but we can expect that to grow as time goes on. Another thing I wanted to go over is how one of the members of Amazon Game Studios describes the skill tree of the game. This comes from Kelly Hecker, who is also another software development engineer on the team, just like Scott. And as we can see this character's bow mastery level increase, she describes each weapon as having a different skill tree. As we continue to use that weapon, we will start to gain more and more proficiency and start to gain different skills and bonuses in that skill tree, and we can either focus on a specific weapon or spread out and look at all types. Scott Lane adds on to this by saying that we could even combo this with different armor variations. So if we want to focus on being a frontline fighter, we can choose to go for a more heavy type of armor. For rangers in the backline, we might want to go for a lighter set of armor. And for, oh my god, yes, we have pistols! Everybody better get their Three Musketeers outfits ready because it's almost time to go Red Dead Redemption on the world of Eternum. And with this system, we might even be able to mix up our armor choices. Maybe we can go for a more nimble frontline fighter build where we can wear medium armor and use spears, or maybe even dual wielding swords or axes if that becomes a thing in the future. Hint, hint. But one thing I would absolutely love to see if they're ever looking to add new types of armor is Templar armor. Maybe it can even be a heavy type of armor that gives more benefits for magic-based users. This would also fit the lore because we've already seen different civilizations visit Eternum, including the Romans. But what we haven't seen is the chosen warriors of God. And my oh my, where are my Vikings? I could see Templars stumbling across Eternum in pursuit of the Holy Land Crusades maybe or maybe not making sense, but you can't tell me that the sons and daughters of Odin, the children of the sea, did not see it. Now a little later in the video, we do get information from David Verifielli on both the magic system and how we gain experience with the weapons we'll be using. For each and every weapon, we will gain experience with it by using it in combat, so when it comes to how we progress, that will be done as we level up and do activities out in the world. Now one very important part I'd like to point out here is that when they showed us this new flaming great axe being swung down on these new corrupted types of enemies, alongside with these other absolutely sick looking showcases, that they were going to distract us. But no way, Jose, I saw that. Guess what this man is holding and what this confirms, and no, that's not a mob, not a corrupted, not an angry earth, or a lost. That is a real person taking the beat down. And he's holding in his hand what all Mask of Zorro fans and probably the only thing Serial Pharrell would have needed to survive Season 1 Game of Thrones would be a rapier. So far, that's 2 new weapon additions in the form of this here amazing pistol and this bad boy itself, which totally makes sense because we have in fact seen other mobs that were carrying the exact same weapon. It only stands to reason that this should be added to the roster at some point. And I've been keeping my eyes very peeled for that greatsword. Don't even worry about that. And the last 2 things we get to look at are a deeper look at the magic system, along with a look at how the open world PvP is going to go down with the flagging system. I've been getting a lot of Dragon Age Inquisition vibes from the magic system so far, and it really seems like they're going all in on expanding the system past what we've seen in the alpha. So far we've only seen the fire staff when it comes to offensive magic, and they have to know that we'll be wanting more when it comes to the final product. Really cool ones to see would be staves that can do ice magic, lightning magic, earth magic, and there's so many other ways they could go with that. Even if they just started with the magically imbued elements that we've seen already in the footage, which does include void or darkness magic. And man oh man, I almost missed this one. You see that creature right there? That totally reminds me of another beast that we talked about previously in the New World Arena video. It looks like the Angry Earth Beast version of the Boogeyman is making a special debut. I am so interested to see where they go with this system, and I'm really glad I've had the opportunity of seeing it grow into what it is now. There still are improvements to be made, of course, like missing skill icons from the Great Axe from what I can see, but from what we've seen so far, I am so down for seeing where this game goes and what it turns into. For me, this is already starting to feel like one of the sandbox MMOs that I've dreamed of for the longest time. And like I said in response to the community letter they put out a few days ago, it hasn't been an easy road for the game. And even though they don't have any intention to put back the open world PvP aspect, if they're able to supplement that to the point of providing a really good MMO experience, that'll be way more than we've been getting in the past few years. And for that alone, I would be truly grateful. Speaking of which, if you haven't yet, don't forget to check out their community letter. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. It goes over their vision for the game as well as what to expect from the future, and even some details about the alpha testing phase, which does include mention of the horde mode as well as magic additions and quests. I can't confirm or deny if I am in the alpha test, but what I can say is that it's great to see this type of information being relayed to the public. And as always, let us know what you think about this deep dive into the combat system that they've provided us. And thanks very much for taking the time to check out this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful night or day. And farewell.